Have you ever trusted someone so completely they felt like family? I did. My name is Anna Garrett, I'm 32, and for me, that person was Sarah. When my charming boss started gaslighting me and stealing my work, she was the one who pulled me aside, offering support. When I uncovered the dangerous truth about our new Alzheimer's drug, I went to her, believing we were in it together. She told me we had to do the right thing. Then she marched me straight into a corporate ambush designed to destroy my career and silence me for good. Before I tell you everything, drop a comment with where you're from. And if you've ever been let down by someone you thought you could count on, smash that like and subscribe button. You need to see how this ends. I dreamed of this moment for years, the kind of moment where you step into a room and feel like you've finally arrived. My first day at Innovate Biopharm was exactly that. The sleek Boston office buzzed with purpose, glass walls reflecting ambition as sharp as the skyline outside. I, Anna Garrett, a data scientist who'd spent years grinding through datasets in dimly lit labs, was now part of the team behind CogniClear, a drug that could rewrite the future for Alzheimer's patients. It wasn't just a job, it was a calling. My heart raced as I walked through the lobby, my new badge swinging proudly against my chest. The project was in its final phase, and I was assigned to crunch the last round of clinical trial data. My first week was a blur of praise. "Anna, your models are airtight," my team lead said during a review. I blushed, unused to the spotlight. I pored over spreadsheets, cross-referencing patient outcomes, feeling like I was holding lives in my hands. The numbers sang to me. Patterns of hope, recovery, a chance to change the world. I'd stay late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. This was my place, my purpose. Then I met Markham Reed, the head of neuropharmacology. He strode into our first meeting like a politician, all charm and polished smiles. His suit was tailored, his voice smooth as whiskey. "Anna Garrett," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that lingered a second too long. "Your reputation precedes you. Welcome to the A-team." He handed me a velvet box, inside a vintage fountain pen, its gold nib gleaming. "A little something to mark the occasion," he said, winking. I thanked him, clutching the pen like a talisman, though something about his gaze made my skin prickle. Generous, yes, but it felt like he was staking a claim. The first crack came during a team meeting. I'd noticed a statistical anomaly in the trial data, a slight uptick in adverse reactions in a small patient group. It wasn't catastrophic, but it warranted a closer look. I raised it cautiously, expecting a discussion. Markham nodded, his smile tight. "Good catch, Anna, let's dig into it." But later in his office he waved it off. "It's noise, not signal. Don't overthink it." His tone was light, but his eyes were cold, like I'd overstepped some invisible line. A week later, I sat in stunned silence as he presented my anomaly, polished and repackaged, as his own brilliant insight to the C-suite. My colleagues nodded along, impressed. I felt a twist in my gut, like someone had stolen a piece of me. In the next meeting, he questioned my choice of statistical models, his voice dripping with condescension. "Anna, are you sure that approach is robust enough?" he asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Heads turned. I stammered a defense, my cheeks burning. Doubt crept in, a whisper I couldn't shake. Sarah Jenkins, a senior colleague with a warm maternal air, pulled me aside after. "Markham can be intense," she said, her hand on my shoulder. "He only pushes people he respects. Don't take it personally." Her words were a balm, soothing the sting. She felt like an ally, someone who saw me. I clung to that, grateful for a friend in this high-stakes world. But at night, alone in my apartment, I replayed Markham's comments, wondering if I'd misstepped. The pen sat on my desk, its shine dulled by a nagging unease. The weeks blurred into a grind. I threw myself into the data, determined to prove my worth. But Markham's shadow loomed larger. He started leaving me off critical email threads about CogniClear's FDA submission. I'd find out in meetings, scrambling to catch up while he raised an eyebrow. "Anna, you seem behind. Everything okay?" he'd say, his voice laced with concern that didn't reach his eyes. Colleagues exchanged glances, and I felt the room tilt, like I was slipping into a hole I couldn't see. His comments grew sharper, more public. In the hallway he'd lean in, casual as ever. "Anna, you seem stressed lately. Trouble at home?" I'd freeze, my personal life a blank slate to him. I lived alone, no drama, no chaos, just me and my work. But his words painted a picture, and I saw it reflected in my coworkers' eyes. They started keeping their distance, their smiles tighter, their conversations shorter. I was becoming a liability, the one who couldn't keep up. I worked later, triple-checking every number, every model. My apartment became a cave of takeout containers and half-drunk coffee mugs. Sleep eluded me, migraines took its place, sharp and relentless. I'd stare at my screen, second-guessing every decision. Was I wrong about the anomaly? Was I too green for this? Sarah was my lifeline. "Just keep your head down," she'd say over coffee, her voice soft. "Markham's tough, but he's fair. Don't make waves." I nodded, clinging to her advice, desperate to believe I wasn't the problem. Then came the night that changed everything. It was past midnight, the office silent except for the hum of my laptop. I was cross-referencing raw data logs against the finalized reports, a habit born of paranoia. My eyes caught a discrepancy. Not a glitch, but a pattern. Data points about severe neurological side effects in a small but significant patient group were missing from the FDA-bound reports. Numbers had been altered, smoothed over, erased. This wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. My heart pounded, the room spinning. This wasn't just about my career. People could get hurt. Real people with families, with lives. I sat back, my hands trembling. The weight of it crushed me, but something else stirred. A clarity, cold and sharp. I couldn't ignore this. I wouldn't. That night, I started a secret project. I copied everything: raw datasets, altered reports, version histories, even Markham's snide emails. I encrypted it all, stashing it on an off-site server I'd set up years ago for a freelance gig. It was a risk, but I had no choice. The truth was too big to bury. I couldn't carry this alone. The discovery gnawed at me. A secret too heavy to hold. I needed an ally, someone to trust. Sarah seemed like the safest bet. She'd been kind, steady, always there with a word of encouragement. So one afternoon I pulled her aside in the break room. "I found something weird in the data," I said, keeping it vague, testing the waters. "Unusual patterns, like something's been changed." I watched her face, searching for a sign. Sarah's eyes widened, her hand flying to her chest. "Anna, that's serious. How bad is it?" Her shock felt real, her concern a lifeline. I exhaled, relief washing over me. I wasn't alone. She insisted we take it to HR. "This is too big for us," she said, her voice firm. "Eleanor Vance is tough but fair. We need to do this right." I nodded, my heart lighter. Sarah was with me. We'd figure this out together. We prepared carefully. I pulled together a sanitized version of my findings, enough to show the discrepancies without accusing anyone outright. My hands shook as I printed the reports, my mind racing with what-ifs. Eleanor's office was stark, all glass and steel, her expression unreadable as we sat down. I laid out the data, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. Sarah nodded along, adding her own comments about concerning trends. Eleanor listened, her pen tapping softly. "We take data integrity seriously," she said finally. "We'll launch a discreet inquiry. Thank you for bringing this to us." For 3 days, I held my breath. I kept my head down, avoiding Markham's gaze in meetings. Then came the call to Eleanor's office. I walked in, expecting an update, maybe a plan. Instead, Markham was there, leaning back in a chair, a smug smile curling his lips. Eleanor's voice was clipped. "After a preliminary review, it seems this is a misunderstanding fueled by interpersonal conflict." My stomach dropped. "We recommend mediation to resolve your communication issues with Markham." The room spun. Mediation? This wasn't about communication, it was about fraud. I looked at Sarah, waiting for her to speak up, to back me. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her silence was a blade, slicing through the trust I'd built. It hit me like a freight train. Sarah had played me. She'd taken my concerns straight to Markham, letting me walk into a trap. I'd shown my hand and they'd turned it against me. As I left Eleanor's office, Markham's smile burned into me, a promise of worse to come. The mediation was a sham. I sat across from Markham in a sterile conference room, Eleanor Vance presiding like a judge who'd already made up her mind. Markham leaned forward, his voice syrupy with false concern. "Anna, we're all under pressure here. It's understandable you're struggling." Struggling? I wanted to scream that I'd found evidence of fraud, that lives were at stake, but Eleanor's pen tapped rhythmically, a warning to stay in line. By the end, HR handed me a performance improvement plan, a document that felt like a scarlet letter. "My access to the Cogniclear database was revoked. To help you focus," Eleanor said. I left the room, my face burning, their eyes boring into my back. The office turned cold overnight. Colleagues who'd once chatted with me over coffee now avoided my gaze. Invitations to team lunches stopped. In meetings, my suggestions were met with silence, as if I hadn't spoken at all. I was the pariah, the one who dared to challenge Markham Reed and failed. Whispers followed me down the halls. She's unstable, too ambitious, couldn't hack it. I ate lunch alone at my desk, the hum of the air conditioning louder than my thoughts. Each night, I went home and stared at my ceiling, the weight of isolation crushing me. I drafted resignation letters in my head, each one a surrender to the machine that had chewed me up. I was packing up my desk one evening, my hands trembling as I shoved papers into my bag when my phone buzzed. An unknown number, a single text. They did the same to me. Markham keeps a shadow archive. Find it. DC. My breath caught. David Chen. I remembered his name from old company newsletters, a brilliant analyst who'd left abruptly last year for personal reasons. I'd never met him, but his words were a lifeline, a flicker of hope in the dark. I clutched my phone, my heart racing. Someone else knew. I wasn't alone. I couldn't trust the company network. Every click was monitored, every login tracked. So I became a ghost. Using a burner phone and the public library's Wi-Fi, I slipped into the company's legacy server system, a clunky relic I'd helped design years ago for a side project. It was a gamble, one wrong move, and I'd be caught. For 3 nights I barely slept, my eyes burning as I navigated firewalls and backdoors, my fingers trembling over the keyboard. The library's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a stark contrast to the adrenaline pumping through me. I was breaking rules, maybe laws, but the truth was worth it. Then I found it. Markham's shadow archive, buried in an encrypted drive. It was a goldmine. Unaltered clinical trial data showing the side effects he'd hidden. Emails where he discussed mitigating negative optics for the FDA. My heart pounded as I downloaded it all, my burner phone's storage filling with evidence that could bring him down. But there was more. A folder labeled Jenkins. I opened it, my stomach twisting. Emails between Markham and Sarah, promising her the lead on the post-launch analysis team if she managed the Anna problem. Worse, audio files, recordings of my private talks with Sarah, her voice warm and encouraging, all while she was feeding every word to Markham. My hands shook as I listened, her betrayal a knife twisting deeper than I'd thought possible. She hadn't just sold me out, she'd orchestrated it. I sat back, the library silent except for the hum of my phone. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, but it was also a ticking bomb. If I used it, I'd be painting a target on my back. Still, I copied everything, encrypted it, and hid it on my off-site server. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the patients who'd trusted CogniClear, for the truth that Markham and Sarah had buried. I knew going back to HR was suicide. Eleanor was in on it, her inquiry a farce to protect the company's golden boy. I needed a bigger play, one they couldn't bury. Over a weekend I locked myself in my apartment, the blinds drawn, my laptop my only light. I organized the evidence into 3 dossiers, clinical data, emails, audio files, all meticulously labeled. Each one was a weapon, sharp and undeniable. I barely ate, my coffee going cold as I worked, my resolve hardening with every file I saved. I set up 3 anonymous email accounts, each timed to send at exactly 8 p.m. on Monday. The recipients? The company's chief external legal counsel, the chairperson of the board's ethics committee at her personal email, and a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist I'd vetted through weeks of research. She'd broken stories like this before, exposing corporate corruption with surgical precision. I triple-checked the dossiers, my hands sweaty as I typed the subject lines. Innovate Biopharm, data fraud evidence. I hit send, deleted everything from my burner phone and shut down my laptop. The silence was deafening. I'd rolled the dice, and there was no going back. The next 12 hours were agony. I barely slept, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Would they trace the emails to me? Would Markham find a way to spin this? I forced myself to get ready for the 7 a.m. meeting with him, slipping into my suit like armor. I walked into the office, my head high, my heart pounding. Whatever happened, I'd done what was right. I was ready for the end. I walked into the conference room at 7 a.m., my stomach a knot of nerves, but my face a mask of calm. Markham was already there, leaning against the table, his eyes glinting with the kind of confidence that comes from thinking you've won. He didn't stand, just gestured to a chair like I was a child called to the principal's office. "Anna," he began, his voice low, venomous, "nobody will hear you cry when I tell you how worthless you are." The door swung open, cutting him off. Eleanor Vance stood there, her face pale as chalk, flanked by 2 corporate security guards in dark suits. Their expressions were stone, unreadable. "Markham," Eleanor said, her voice tight, "this meeting is over." My heart stuttered. Something was wrong for him. Markham's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly, chuckling. "Eleanor, what's this about? Let's not make a scene." But she didn't answer. Instead, she stepped aside, and the guards moved forward, their presence filling the room. I stayed rooted to my chair, my pulse hammering in my ears. The large screen on the wall flickered to life, and suddenly, the faces of the board of directors appeared, their expressions grim, some looking like they hadn't slept. The chairperson of the ethics committee, a stern woman with silver hair, spoke first. "Markham Reed, effective immediately, your employment is suspended pending a federal investigation into allegations of data fraud." The room went still. Markham's mouth opened, then closed, his face a mix of shock and defiance. "This is absurd," he sputtered. "What allegations? Who's behind this?" But before anyone could answer, the door opened again, and Sarah Jenkins was escorted in. Her eyes were wide, her usual composure cracked. She looked at me, then at Markham, and I saw the moment she realized the ground was crumbling beneath her. Eleanor didn't waste time. She placed a tablet on the table and tapped it. An audio file began to play. Markham's voice, unmistakable, coaching Sarah on how to handle me. "She's too curious, Sarah. Keep her close, make her doubt herself. We can't have her derailing the submission." Sarah's face crumpled, her hands gripping the edge of the table. I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow ache. Her betrayal had cut deep, but seeing her exposed like this was just sad. Markham's bravado collapsed. His face went from shock to terror, his eyes darting to the guards, then to me. I met his gaze, steady, unflinching. He'd underestimated me, and now the truth was out, raw and undeniable. Eleanor spoke again, her voice cold. "Please hand over your company property, both of you." The guard stepped closer, and Markham fumbled with his badge, his hands shaking. Sarah was silent, her head bowed as she slid her ID across the table. As they were escorted out, Markham shot me a look, pure venom, but also fear. I didn't flinch. The door closed behind them and Eleanor turned to me. "Anna, we'll need to speak with you later today. The board has questions." Her tone wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. I nodded, my throat tight. The room emptied, leaving me alone with the hum of the screen. I sank into a chair, my body trembling as the adrenaline drained away. I'd done it. The truth was out. But what came next? By noon, the news broke. Innovate Biopharm issued a public statement recalling the CogniClear submission from the FDA. The journalist I'd sent the dossier to had published her story, a scathing exposé that lit up the internet. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I didn't look. I was too raw, too tired. I went home, curled up on my couch, and let the tears come. Not just for me, but for the patients who'd almost been betrayed, for the trust I'd lost in people like Sarah. The world felt heavy. But for the first time in months, I breathed a little easier. The fallout was chaos. The headlines screamed, "Biotech giant faces fraud allegations." Innovate Biopharm stock plummeted and the FDA launched a full investigation. Markham and Sarah were gone, their names erased from the company website overnight. I stayed out of the spotlight, dodging calls from reporters and ignoring the whispers in the office. Colleagues who'd shunned me now offered awkward smiles, but I kept my distance. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Then came the call that changed everything. It was the chairperson of the ethics committee, her voice steady but urgent. "Anna, we'd like to meet with you. In person." I walked into the boardroom a week later, my hands clammy, expecting a grilling. Instead, they offered me something I never saw coming. A new C-suite role, Chief Integrity Officer, with oversight over all data analysis and internal reporting. "You exposed a flaw in our system," the chairperson said. "We need someone like you to rebuild trust." I didn't say yes right away. I went home, sat with the offer, and let myself feel the weight of it. The past months had broken something in me. My confidence, my belief in people. I'd fought alone, been betrayed, and come out scarred. Could I step back into that world? I walked to my desk, where the vintage fountain pen sat in a simple glass holder. It wasn't a trophy, it was a reminder of how close I'd come to losing myself. I picked it up, felt its weight, and made my decision. I took the job. Not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to make sure no one else felt as alone as I had. My first act was to create the Phoenix program, a mentorship and support system for employees who reported misconduct. I poured my heart into it, designing protocols to protect whistleblowers, to give them a voice. I met with young analysts, their eyes wide with the same fear I'd felt, and told them, "It's okay to question the data, it's your duty." Those words became my mantra, a promise to myself and to them. A year later, I stood in my new office, the Boston skyline stretching out beyond the window. A young analyst named Priya sat across from me, her hands twisting nervously as she showed me a dataset with inconsistencies. "I don't know if I'm reading this right," she said, her voice small. I leaned forward, my tone gentle but firm. "You're doing exactly what you should. Let's dig into it together." Her shoulders relaxed, and I saw a spark of confidence in her eyes. It felt like looking in a mirror, seeing the woman I'd been a year ago, scared but determined. I glanced at the pen on my desk, its gold nib catching the light. It wasn't about Markham anymore, or Sarah, or the betrayal. It was about what came after, about rebuilding, about protecting the truth. I'd survived the fire, and from the ashes, I'd built something new. My office was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. It was filled with purpose, with the hum of a fight worth fighting. I looked out at the city, my reflection faint in the glass. I was calm, powerful, and, for the first time in a long time, at peace. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had shaped me into something stronger. I wasn't just a data scientist anymore. I was a guardian, a voice for those who dared to speak up. And as I turned back to Priya, ready to guide her through the numbers, I knew this was only the beginning. The world was messy, full of shadows, but I'd learned how to shine a light. And I'd keep shining it, no matter the cost. My story is a testament to trusting that quiet voice inside you, even when the world is screaming that you're wrong. They will try to make you feel small, unstable, or foolish for questioning what feels wrong. Don't let them. Your gut feeling is your compass in a world full of polished lies. The path of integrity is often a lonely one, but it's the only one worth taking. If you're in a situation that compromises who you are, remember my fight. Your voice is more powerful than you know, so never be afraid to use it.